Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the roll call.
Councilman Daly?
Here.
Councilman Duper?
Present.
Councilman Popescu? Here. Mayor Pro Tempore Lenart?
Here.
Mayor Rigsby?
Here.
Thank you, all present.
Thank you. We have closed session and we'll get a report from our attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council was in closed session on a litigation matter that's listed on the agenda. In that regard, the City Council received a report of the status of litigation from the City Attorney, gave direction for initial response and further investigation of the matter. There's no final action in that regard at this time.
Thank you. Next item is invocation and pledge of allegiance led by me. Please stand insofar as you are able. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No additions or deletions.
Thank you. I have a large stack of requests for public comment for non-agendized items. So we will proceed with that. And I think because there's so many, we'll stick to our official 3-minute limit. When there's only one commenter, sometimes we go over, but try to keep it to 3 minutes. You want more, Georgia?
I can't do it in 3 minutes.
Well, we might give you 4. We'll play it by ear. Maybe the others can grant you a couple of their seconds. Okay, so we'll start with, just do them in the order they're presented here. Won-Ha Kim.
Good evening. My name is Won-Ha Kim, and I'm a pediatrician and a preventive medicine physician who lives and works in Loma Linda. And tonight, I want to highlight something that's near and dear to my heart. Every time I work in clinic, I encounter many children who are overweight or obese. And we all know that obesity is a growing problem in the United States, with 1 in 3 children who are overweight or obese. In fact, what we see now has skewed our perception of norms, such that I have parents coming into clinic worry that their child is underweight, when in fact they are normal weight. As our esteemed mayor already knows, a child who is overweight or obese has higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, and heart disease, to name a few. But more immediately, they are at higher risk of developing headaches, trouble breathing, obstructive sleep apnea, which is difficulty breathing while sleeping, hip pain, knee pain, and inflammation of the liver, to name a few. Not only that, they're more likely to be bullied or be bullies themselves. In other words, there's a high risk and a high physical, psychosocial, and psychological cost to being overweight or obese. And one of the contributing factors to the obesity epidemic is the consumption of sugary beverages. Drinking just 1 sugary beverage a day increases a child's likelihood being overweight by 55%. And so it's no wonder that since there are, in a typical 20-ounce soda, there are 15 to 18 teaspoons of sugar. These are what we call empty calories that do not contain any nutritional value. And here's something to ponder. An average American drinks 53 gallons of soda each year, which amounts to 49 pounds of sugar. And if you look at the trend of the size of sugary beverages sold in convenience stores or restaurants over the years, it has increased from the 7-ounce original McDonald's drink in 1955 to 128-ounce Team Gulp at 7-Eleven currently. So is it a mere coincidence that the size of these drinks have increased over the same time period that the rate of obesity has increased in our country? I'll let that sink in. And in addition to contributing to the obesity epidemic, sugary beverages also lead to poor oral health, which Dr. Daly knows very well, I'm sure. Children who frequently consume sugary beverages are nearly twice as likely to have cavities as children who consume mostly milk and water. Given these negative health effects of sugary beverages, it behooves us as healthcare professionals, parents, and councilmen to protect our children and to advocate for them. They are the future of our city, our state, our country, and beyond. For Loma Linda to keep its designation as a blue zone of longevity, we need to keep our children healthy. And one way we can keep our children healthy is to offer healthy beverages as the default option. I would love to see our city be a healthy city where healthy is the default in everything. I hope that you will all join me in advocating for our children and for the health of our city. Thank you.
Next speaker is Reham Halawani.
Hi, good evening. My name is Reham Halawani, a resident of Loma Linda City. Despite the fact I'm a doctoral student in School of Public Health with specific major of nutrition, I'm a mother for 3 little kids who were born in Loma Linda University Medical Center. 10 years ago, me and my husband decided to move to Loma Linda for its reputation as one of the five blue zones in the world. I wanted my kids to be raised in a place where everyone concerned about health and longevity. We looked at the policy and regulations in Loma Linda as not as a restrictions, but as a better life leaders and a healthier system. Recently, I have learned about the Healthy by Default beverages system, and I believe Loma Linda City should be the leader for such actions to show the commitment we all as a community believe in and work towards. It was brought to attention that such action might affect the business sector in the area. Therefore, we developed a survey speaking to stakeholders, including parents and business owners. The result shows very pleasing and positive outcomes. We asked 460 parents if they would support healthy option by default instead of sugary beverages, and 97% said yes. And the majority of the parents ranked health as their top priority when they are eating out. And when it came to business owners, among the 30 restaurants in Loma Linda, only 12 serve kids' meal, whom we have asked if they support the policy. And 70% said yes, and 80% said such policy will not hurt their businesses. Therefore, on behalf of Loma Linda residents, parents, and business owners, I would like to ask your respected office to cooperate with us in regard to this policy. Thank you.
Next is Andrea Fanica.
Esteemed council members, my name is Andrea Fanica, and I am a resident of Loma Linda. I am a Loma Linda instructor, and above all, I am a mother. And I just wanted to present to you McDonald's report, actually, to show how their business was impacted by the change they have made for their default beverages. So sales data reported by McDonald's sheds light on a potential impact of the McDonald's Alliance partnership. Data on monthly take rates of the frequency with which a specific product is selected as part of the Happy Meal show that when McDonald's removed sodas from the list of Happy Meal beverage options shown on menu boards, there was an increase in the percentage of customers who selected either milk or juice with their Happy Meals. Specifically, take rates for low-fat white milk, fat-free chocolate milk, and 100% apple juice increased 9 percentage points from 37% to 46% in the first 11 months following the change in the menu boards. And this was done in 2014 through 2015. Meanwhile, the take rates for sodas fell from 56% to 48%. This shift in take rates contributed to a 21 million unit increase in the total number of milk and juice served in Happy Meals and a la carte. By switching from an extra small size, which is 12 ounces, that is approximately 10 teaspoons of sugar in an extra small size of a soda. So by switching that to low-fat milk or fat-free chocolate milk, children get an additional 30% of the daily recommended amount of calcium and 10% of their recommended vitamin A. By switching to a carton of 100% apple juice, children receive 100% of the recommended daily intake for vitamin C and 10% of the daily recommended amount of calcium. So I think I will let the numbers speak for themselves, but I think it is pretty obvious that this policy will not affect businesses in a negative way, and I think that the health of our children should trump the business aspect of things. Thank you so much.
Next is Yen Ang.
I was hoping that you will let Dr. Hodgkin speak first, but I'll do it.
I can do it any order you like.
Would you like to speak first?
Georgia Hodgkin.
I'm Georgia Hodgkin. I live on Lawton. And I hope you're wide awake because I have more detail here than any of you want to hear. But I'm a dietitian, and dietitians have to. It's in our DNA to tell you detail. So hang on. First of all, I urge you to support an ordinance that milk or water be the default beverage. So you might ask, why do kids need to drink milk? Soda, as you've heard, is simply sugar and water. There are no nutrients in it. Milk, on the other hand, hang on. Calcium first provides for the rigidity and strength of our bones, and our bones are not static. That calcium keeps changing, so you need to keep replenishing it. Children, and I've got data here, for 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds, 500 to 1,800 milligrams of calcium per day, 300 in a cup. Please don't tell me that you can get all the calcium you need from kale. You need 3 servings of kale to equal 1 cup. Riveting, isn't it? You're just so glad you came to City Council tonight. You wanted to hear this. Protein is an X-nutrient. Protein forms a matrix on which calcium crystals are deposited. It also is important for hormones, neurotransmitters, cell walls, enzymes, the hundreds of other proteins in our bodies that keeps this machinery functioning. Each cup has 8 grams, and a child needs from 13 to 34 grams. So that's 2 cups for some kids, 3 cups for others. Then there are much smaller amounts of vitamins and minerals in milk. Vitamin B12 only comes from animal sources. And I'm thrilled to tell you, Dorothy Hodgkin identified the structure of vitamin B12, got the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1964. So now you can buy supplements of B12, and they can put B12 in meat alternates and other products. So milk provides B12. Milk provides riboflavin, vitamin B2. That's important for the enzymes that release the energy from our food. So the amount you need is dependent upon how many calories you choose. Thank you for listening. I see you find this just wonderful to hear all this. Thank you. Vitamin D is in milk, added to milk. It's not naturally in any food, only from the sun. But my favorite dermatologist says, beware the sun. It's very damaging to your skin. Why do we need vitamin D? It was thought that its sole purpose was to facilitate the absorption of calcium. But now it's been found that there are receptors for vitamin D in every cell of our body. Nobody knows what they do, but we better provide a little vitamin D if there's a receptor. We do know it protects against infections. Loma Linda Sen had TB patients sitting in the sun to cure their TB. Vitamin D. Take vitamin D to avoid the flu, other infections. It's protective against autoimmune diseases, multiple sclerosis, diabetes, cancers of the breast, colon, lung, prostate, lymphomas. The bottom line is, have I exceeded my 3 minutes, Mayor?
No, you have 10 more minutes.
Thank you. It may take that long to give you all this detail. The bottom line is the children of Loma Linda need milk for its calcium, its protein, its riboflavin, its B12, vitamin D. I urge you to support this ordinance ahead of the state bill to send a message to Sacramento that parents want their children to receive milk or water with their meals. Thank you for the extended time.
You're welcome. And now Yen Ang.
Good evening. My name is Yen. I'm a resident in Loma Linda City. First of all, I'd like to thank and acknowledge Phil and Mr. Conrad for giving me a chance to discuss with you. a couple of times about an issue that is dear to my heart, which is the healthy by default beverage for kids' meal. However, I thought it is important for you to have a chance to hear what other residents in Loma Linda City have to say. And so thank you for this opportunity to allow the other 4 speakers to speak. As you can see, 5 of us come from very diverse backgrounds. Some of us are immigrants to this country and for various reasons. And one of the reasons we came to this country is because we want a better future. But all 5 of us have our day job, whether we are teacher, college professors, doctor, pediatrician, or student, we have one common goal, and we do share one common job. And our job is as a resident of Loma Linda City. So today, we are here as mom, as grandma, as a resident of Loma Linda City, to talk to you and to appeal to you one more time that we are willing and we are committed to work with you to adopt a policy that protects the health of our children. The Healthy by Default beverage bill is actually very simple. Basically, it only impacts on restaurants that sells kids' meal. As far as Loma Linda is concerned, there are only 12 restaurants that do so. And basically, the bill says if you sell kids' meal, we would like you to present water or milk as a default choice, but soda can always be something that is given upon request by the parent or the child. So the Healthy by Default beverage policy is basically redefining what default beverage is. It does not take away choices or limit choices from the parents. It is not restricting choices in any way and form or shape. It's basically rearranging the beverage drink. Now tonight you have heard from 2 very important stakeholders that will be impacted the most by this policy if it is adopted as an ordinance. And they are the parents as well as the business owners. And you have heard that from the studies that we have conducted by the students that 97% of the parents that we survey are not opposed to the policy. In fact, they are supportive of the policy. And even among restaurants who sell kids' meal, 70% of them say they are okay with this policy and that this policy will not hurt their business. So the economical impact of this ordinance, if there's any, will be actually a positive one because it will attract the right kind of business who are pro-health and pro-parents' choice to Loma Linda City. And this is the kind of business that will protect and strengthen the legacy of Blue Zone. Because this bill is all about protecting parents' choice and kids' health. It's all about rearranging the presentations of our meal. The bill, if it is adopted as an ordinance, will only set Loma Linda apart because we will be the first and the only city in the entire San Bernardino County. And it will set Loma Linda once again as a leader in health. The impact of a decision of the bill to adopt the bill is huge. It goes beyond the 12 restaurants that sells kids' meal. It goes beyond the 25,000 residents who live in Loma Linda City at night, and the 50,000 students and visitors or workers who travel to the city to work or study in the day. So it goes beyond the 8 square miles of the city. The impact will actually reach the 2 million residents in this huge county, which is about 20,000 square miles, because our decision and action will pave way for the other 24 cities to do the same. And most importantly, by adopting this policy, we are saying this as city administrators. We hear the voices of our people and we want to work with them. And we have decided to take the leap of faith, and we're going to draw a line in the sand and say that nothing is more important than our kids' health. And we will do everything we can to protect the youngest residents of our city. So dear council members, let's do the common sense solution to our kids' problem today. Let's do it together. Let's make healthy a default in Loma Linda City. Thank you.
That's the last request for speakers. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on any topic not on the agenda?
Before you move on, just a point of clarification, what are the next steps? I mean, we've heard a data-rich, multiple presentations on a prospective bill. Can you give me a handle on what the next steps are in this?
Well, I think the first thing, because it's not agendized, we can't do a whole lot of chatting about it. I think we can ask a few questions of the presenters. I have one question, and that is, who is this aimed at? Because most sit-down restaurants don't have a default beverage, so you're aiming it at children's meals, which are at typically chain fast food establishments?
Well, there's 12 such restaurants in Loma Linda.
Okay. So that answers my question. So I think what we would do, the typical thing we do in these circumstances is instruct the staff to come up with some kind of an analysis or.
We've met with these guys a couple of times already and have offered a few potential solutions that we can bring back, if you like.
And I guess before people put a lot of effort into drafting a bill, I want to be sure that there's some communication of what's under consideration with the businesses involved too. I think they, I mean, I'm married to a pediatrician, so all of this is resonating with what I hear all the time. But in fairness, the businesses should have the opportunity to react to it as well.
Well, they definitely would if it came up as an agendized ordinance or some kind of a law. So any other questions from the council, any of the presenters? Nothing? Okay. Then we will proceed with our, I think we'll try to get something back. Some kind of
We can bring something for next meeting.
Yeah. Thank you. You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you like. You thought you bored us. We're going to challenge you. Okay, our first item is a public hearing, Council Bill O-2018-06, first reading, setting second reading for September 11, amending Title 17 zoning, and we have a presentation from Community Development.
Good evening, Mayor Grigsby, councilmen, members of the public. My name is Lorena Matarita, and I am the Associate Planner for the City of Loma Linda. And tonight I will be presenting two different zone change requests. The first one, initiated by Loma Linda University Health, is for the area known as Mountain View Plaza on the northeast corner of Barton and Mountain View Avenue.
Can I ask the city attorney if there are any
Conflict of interest?
conflictual elements to this?
I don't, I have not analyzed that or been asked to. I'm not aware of the ownership interests in that.
This is a Lou Ascone property,
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
or a significant portion of it is Lou Ascone.
All right. Well, if they are, in fact, the applicant and affected by it, then we would be in a rule of necessity situation.
Okay, then we will have to, Ron, are you still 1 year? Are you still in the conflictual zone?
That's up to the city attorney. I retired June 30th, 17.
What about your spouse?
My spouse left November 30th.
So you're still within 1 year.
Okay.
Okay, so I have my usual 2 straws prepared.
It's random, so it doesn't matter.
Get your straws figured out. They get a lot of work. Okay.
It's funny, it came right apart. Okay. These are
Okay.
worn out.
So here's an aerial view of the subject site. It includes 11 parcels. 9 are owned by Loma Linda University Health, and the other 2 Clark and Rite Aid respectively. Again,
I'm sorry, you said, we're talking about ownership now? So if I understood you, Clark's owns their building.
their parcel, yes.
Rite Aid owns their building.
Correct.
Everything else is owned by
The
Loma
uni-
Linda Health?
The university, yes, in this
Oh.
Mountain View Plaza Shopping
Okay,
Center.
thank you.
Okay, so again, this application is a zone change request to amend the city's zoning map from neighborhood business, C1, to general commercial, C2, at the site I just described on the previous slide. In addition, the request includes a development code amendment to update the text portion of Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.40, for commercial and industrial zones. As shown on the top diagram depicted in this magenta area, it's currently zoned C1. It is adjacent to C2, which is general commercial, and commercial manufacturing to the north in this gray area. The proposal down here is to change it to C2, as shown on this bottom diagram. With this change, the existing uses would be more compatible with the C2 zone. I will go more into details in these next few slides. So the general plan land use designation is commercial and it will remain the same. The zone change would continue to implement the commercial land use designation. Currently, the existing uses in the plaza are commercial shops and offices, with the exception of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is a use permitted in all zones. Some of the places you might find there include Project Management Services, State Farm, Childhood Cancer Foundation, Information Systems Office, IT Support Office. As you can tell by the list, most are professional service type uses that require office space. And then there are also major anchors such as Rite Aid and Clark's. The C1 zone, as defined, is shopping and commercial businesses that cater to the daily needs of residents and local workers. This zone limits office use to 15% on the ground floor. The other 85% must be a commercial or retail type of use. Based on discussions with the applicant, it was determined that the area functioned more as a C2 zone than a C1, with 74% of the businesses functioning as an office use. As defined, C2 allows for more flexibility when it comes to the types of uses within the zone. It allows for commercial service needs, shopping, offices, as well as standalone commercial anchors. Mountain View Plaza happens to include all mentioned uses, so it made sense to change it to C2. It was also at that time that staff and the applicant realized that the amendment to the zoning code that occurred last year in July 2017 was inadvertently made too restrictive for existing office uses in the C2 zone. We had placed the same office limitations on both C1 and C2. Staff recommended the applicant propose not only to change the map, but to change the text to the development code as well. This change would extend the unlimited office use, which was the original intent of C2. In addition, during this review of the code, it revealed ambiguities and errors. Therefore, staff made minor modifications and corrections to the text. In terms of access, approval of the zone change and development code amendment would not result in any new traffic or require additional parking spaces at the plaza. Access to the site would continue to be provided by 3 driveways, including 2 along Mountain View Avenue and 1 along Barton Road. Zone changes are legislative acts, so the project does not require environmental review and is considered exempt from CEQA. The project was presented to Planning Commission on August 1st. They did not have any concerns or issues with the proposal, and that evening, they made a motion to recommend approval to City Council. The project notice was mailed to surrounding property owners, posted at 3 public locations, and published in the Sun newspaper. There were no written or oral comments received in opposition or in favor of the proposed project, with the exception of the property owners within the subject site who were all in favor and supportive of the change. Although findings are not required for a zone change, staff did decide to draft findings to support the project. They are, the proposed amendment to the code and zoning map would be consistent with the general plan and would not cause substantial environmental damage or be detrimental to the public welfare. Changes to the zoning from C1 to C2 would be compatible with surrounding land uses in the area, including commercial development to the north, south, and east, and commercial development and multifamily development to the west. The proposed code amendment to the text portion would lift the currently restrictive office space use and allow the existing office uses within the plaza to conform to the development code. To conclude, again, the zone amendment brings existing uses into conformance with the code. It is compatible with existing and future uses in the area, and it complies with the goals of the general plan and commercial zone. So staff and the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council introduce ordinance number 2018-06 to amend Title 17 zoning, and also approve the zone change application to change the section of the zoning map from C1 to C2. So that concludes my presentation. Did you guys have any questions?
Do you have any questions?
So what kind of correspondence was made with the other landowners?
Responses from the other landowners, I think this is something that Curtis Sharp can probably answer because he's been dealing with them directly.
So they aren't represented here tonight? And do we have anything in writing that they support this agreement?
I do have email correspondences that show that they support the change. So
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was introduced. Curtis Sharp. I'm with Loma Linda University Health. I'm a project manager, and I'm the one who filed the application. So I've been in contact with the Rite Aid property owners, which actually is Manpi Loma Linda Inc. It's a corporation that leases their property to Rite Aid. And then we have the Clark's Nutrition shopping center. And I've been in contact with them since the beginning of the year. And so over the last probably 5 months, we've been in constant conversation about the zoning change. Once we had the proposal drafted and I had something to show them that came from city staff, they reviewed it. The owners of the Rite Aid property, after thorough review, decided that they supported the change. They felt that the expanded usage would be beneficial to them. Clark's, on the other hand, was still concerned about the potential of there ever being some type of a cars sales lot on the property if we happen to sell, that being Loma Linda University Health. So we, at the very beginning, told them that we would be willing to sign a CC&R agreement that would restrict usage on the property, because we couldn't impose that on the city, because that would mean that we would have to do a special area that would be specific to that if we were asking for restrictions to the zoning usage. So I just sent to Clark's attorney today a CC&R agreement that basically restricts both property owners from ever having a car sales lot on the property. And with that said, they said that they would not show up to the hearing and that they would support the change. So we've been in a collaborative effort for several months, trying to be very transparent with our neighbors and what our intent is, and they support us to move forward with the C2 zoning. So yeah, I hope that it explains everything, and if you have any other questions.
Bruce Clark was here last week on Wednesday, and we discussed it, and he was supportive of the limit with the car lot, and we kind of talked about the purpose of this and what the outcome would be, and so we had his support on that.
And then what is the university's intent for the property?
Well, I think as we go forward, we are going to have some vacancies as we move into the new administration building over in San Bernardino. I think the main intent is that we want to keep it to office use primarily, and probably or potentially some more outpatient type clinics. We tend to get that type of occupant at the plaza. So moving it to C2, I think you'd probably see a similar mix. I'm not sure exactly what occupants we would bring in, but we are going to have some vacancies. So moving to the C2 will also increase the probability of us keeping occupancy high.
Okay. There's no desire to drive out any of the existing businesses, is there?
None at all. Any other questions?
I think to our planning lady, I just want to be sure I fully understand and grasp this, because when I read the staff report, mine's all marked up with questions, but you did an excellent presentation. So I think I understand now what's happening here. Basically, that was originally zoned as C1 in anticipation that there would be a lot of neighborhood businesses in that Mountain View Plaza.
Correct.
Decades ago when it was built. And what has evolved over time is that it's become primarily offices and some businesses. And so what this zoning change would do is to basically bring it into alignment with appropriate zoning, and also remain consistent with the general city plan. Do I have that straight?
You have that straight, that's correct. So it'll conform with the current code, and it's still consistent with the general plan.
Okay, thank you, because I wasn't clear on this, so I appreciate your presentation. How did this come up? How did we suddenly discover that the zoning was inappropriate for what had happened over there? I'm just curious.
They came to us to do, I don't remember if it was that one or over here at the Stater Brothers Plaza, to do some office space. We looked up just as a cursory inspection, what's the zoning, what's the uses, And it was, oh, look at this.
You had an aha experience.
There was an epiphany.
Yeah,
And, this is an opportunity to get the use back, or the zoning correct with the use,
okay.
and meet their needs while we're doing it.
And are there potential downsides to this that we need to be aware of?
But theoretically, someplace out in the future, Loma University Health could sell it. Somebody could tear it down and not put a shopping center back in its place, but rather put office buildings. But we would have a bite at that apple during that
Before it
PPD,
happened.
during that planning process. But that's the theoretical downside. From a practical standpoint, there really isn't, and it allows us to allow the University Health people to continue doing what they're doing and expand and adapt appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Good presentation.
Any other comments from councilmen?
I will, let me get my agenda here. I
We need
will
a
move
public hearing,
support.
right?
Oh, wait, this is only a first hearing. We got to
Yeah.
wait for a second
We
hearing.
need a public hearing?
Yeah, okay.
Introduction on first hearing.
Okay, so we can open the public hearing now? Anybody from the public would like to comment on this? Hearing none, we can close the public hearing. And what is the council's pleasure? Can this be all packaged together as one?
No, because they're out.
Two separate properties. But I think what we do now is nothing. We
I mean, of these three.
agendize it for the second reading next month.
Well, the staff report on this item is the one property, and, sorry, I don't have a page number on it's the first page of the staff report on this item. Lists the 3 recommended actions that can be taken together.
These three here, right? That's what I'm asking.
Yes,
So we can have a motion for those three.
correct.
But I understand this is a first hearing, and what we do tonight is set a second reading for September 11. Am I mistaken on that?
Correct.
Correct. Does that require an action?
Yeah, that is, it shows August 28th in the agenda packet. Is that date?
On my agenda,
think we're
it
having a-
says September 11.
September 11th.
Yeah, there's no
Okay.
meeting on the 28th, right? So the next meeting is the
Yeah,
11th?
if you're here on the 28th, you're alone.
All right.
Yeah, so it should be the 11th.
Yes,
So do we need a motion?
yes, so a motion encompassing those 3 items.
So
And the
moved.
September 11th, second reading.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I guess that's it. Thank you.
While we're getting situated for the next agenda item, I'd like to request that in the agenda packets, when we have these kinds of proposals that have been through the Planning Commission, that we have a copy of those minutes so we know what the issues were that were discussed, because I had some questions I was going to ask, but I assumed they were already covered in the Planning Commission. Is that appropriate?
Our challenge with that is that we don't have approved minutes from the Planning Commission by the time we bring this. There's a lag phase, because the Planning Commission had their meeting 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, and they would approve at the earliest time their minutes next month.
Oh, I see what you're
So-
saying. So the minutes exist, but not the approved minutes.
They are not approved minutes, correct.
Okay.
Can I ask that we pay our cable bill so we can see Channel 3 in the back room? We have no idea what you guys did.
You don't want to know.
Okay, I'll take that. Okay, item number 2.
We moved internal medicine to the plaza to occupy the empty space.
That's closer to my day job. Yeah, my office is in that plaza, so. I'm close to Angelo's. Do they have milk? Okay, item number 2, public hearing, Council Bill O-2018-07, first reading, setting second reading for September 11, amending the East Valley Corridor specific plan boundary. Community development, you're already ready. Go ahead.
Thank you. And hopefully with this presentation, I can clarify any questions that you guys have in the staff report. So this one, again, it includes the tentative parcel map and a zone change, along with the amendment to the East Valley Corridor boundary map for a property located on the southwest corner of Redlands and Poplar Street. The applicant, Ricardo Rodriguez, is proposing to combine 2 lots into one, creating a new 0.32 acre parcel. This project includes a zone change request to change parcel B from very high density residential, R3, to East Valley Corridor General Commercial. The zone change is necessary for continuous zoning upon approval of the lot combination. Additionally, this project is amending the specific plan boundary map. Parcel A will extend its boundary 45 feet south to encompass parcel B, and no development is being proposed at this time. Currently, both parcels are vacant, and both have a general planned land use designation of commercial. In terms of zoning, parcel A is zoned general commercial within East Valley Corridor specific plan, and like I said before, parcel B, very high density residential, but just outside of the specific plan boundaries. So here's parcel B, and the boundaries are right here. So to give you a brief history of the subject site, the applicant obtained the parcels from the city in 2017. As part of the sale agreement, the city required the applicant to change the zoning of the southern parcel to match the northern parcel, and to combine the lots through a parcel map application. Upon completion of the combination and zone change, the city can close escrow on the sale of the property. The tentative parcel map was reviewed by the Administrative Review Committee, including the Public Works Department. Most comments received were standard requirements and included into the conditions of approval. Once the parcel map is approved by the Commission and Council, the applicant will be required to submit the final map to Public Works for final processing and recordation. Vehicular access to parcel A is provided from an existing driveway along Redlands Boulevard. Access to parcel B will be provided via an existing driveway along Poplar. Since there is no development proposed at this time, no changes to the existing driveways is proposed, and no new traffic would result. Potential future development at the site would be reviewed at that time and may require a traffic study. General plan designation will remain the same, commercial. These 2 diagrams depict the existing and the proposed zoning, as well as the boundary shift. In the top left, you see the existing zoning for parcel B is R3. Right here, this thick black line is the boundaries of the East Valley Corridor specific plan. At the bottom right is the proposed. So basically, this R3 would be converted into East Valley Corridor General Commercial. That way, the 2 will match. And again, the zone change would extend the commercial uses from the south corner and subsequently extend residential land uses further from Redlands Boulevard, ultimately resulting in an enhanced safety for residences. The zone and boundary change is a legislative act and does not require environmental review, so it's exempt from CEQA. The parcel map is categorically exempt pursuant to section 15315, which applies to minor land divisions of properties in urbanized areas. The project was presented to Planning Commission on August 1st, and a motion was made to recommend approval to council. A project notice was mailed to surrounding property owners, posted at 3 public locations, and published in the Sun newspaper. Staff was contacted by a local resident who had questions. We met with the resident on July 19th and provided clarification about the application type and explained the zone change request in detail. No other written or oral comments received in opposition or in favor of the proposed project. Amending the boundary and zoning maps are considered legislative acts, like I mentioned before, and do not require findings. However, the tentative parcel map does. So staff decided to draft findings to support both applications and the recommendation of approval. They are as followed: that the boundary change is minor and consistent with the specific plan, the general plan, and the goals of the commercial land use designation. The proposed zone change would be compatible with surrounding land uses in the area, including commercial development to the north, east, and west, and residential development to the south. Upon approval, the applicant will submit a final map to Public Works, which will be reviewed and approved by City Council before recordation. So Staff and Planning Commission recommend that the City Council first introduce ordinance number 0/2008-07 to amend the East Valley Corridor Specific Plan Boundary and Municipal Code zoning map, as well as approve tentative parcel map application P18032 to combine the 2 lots, and also file the CEQA notice of exemption. So that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Just a couple of questions. You mentioned a July 19 meeting with a resident. I'm assuming that was one of the 2 properties that's in the elbow of the L that we're proposing by merging these 2 properties. If you can go back to the another one. There you go. So I'm proposing you met in the elbow between parcel A and parcel B. I assume one of those property owners is who you met with. Am I correct?
No, the property to the south.
South.
Residential
Yes.
property to the south, I believe
Ah,
she
The
owns.
Okay.
ones in the elbow are existing non-conforming, so they're already commercial uses or commercial zoning. There's residential use, but the commercial zone.
Okay.
The resident to the south was primarily concerned about street widening and how that would impact the widening
Property.
of Poplar Street there in
Yeah.
front of her property.
And what's the answer to that?
Well, the applicant's going to have to do street widening, and then part of that process will then bring part of that widening and kind of pull the streets together. So it'll be that jogging piece,
Okay.
but she was concerned about having to give up part of her front yard and
Sure,
and
sure.
the city taking that land away, and so that's not part of this project.
And what about the 2 properties I'm concerned about in the L?
No
Are those
comment.
private residents?
The one is a residential use, I don't know what the other one is, but they are both zoned commercial already, so
And neither of them have any issue with this?
there was no comment.
Okay. And then, in the staff report, it indicates that development is not proposed at this time. Do we have any sense of just what kind of development they're anticipating putting in there?
The applicant at one point had said something about, and this is tentative, a smog shop, a lube and tune, some type of an auto repair type use. And there's several of them along Redlands Boulevard that would be
Yeah.
consistent with that area.
Okay. Thank you. Again, good job.
Anybody else? Okay, if there are no questions of staff, then I will open the public hearing. Anybody want to speak on this topic? No takers. Okay, gone. Public hearing is over. What's the pleasure of the council?
once again, we're just approving this to be set up for a second reading on September 11, correct?
That's how it's agendized, yes.
Yes, so I will make that motion.
I'll second.
And the motion includes the 3 recommended actions in the staff report and on the board, the conditions and so forth, yes.
Okay, so the motion is to approve essentially what was outlined on the staff report, including setting this as the first reading and the second reading for September 11. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, then it's set for a second reading, September 11.
Unanimously.
Unanimously, yes. Okay. Item number 3 is another public hearing, Council Bill O-2018-08, first reading, setting second reading for September 11 also, amending Title 10-27030. Public Works.
I'm Jeff Peterson with Public Works. Mr. Mayor, Council, you have before you an item that deals with commercial parking. We haven't had this issue for quite some time. What came about is we are doing more street repair work, and some of that street repair work is due to the deterioration of our asphalt pavements, mostly in the corridor that is adjacent to the freeway. We have had a proliferation of distribution centers north of the freeway, and especially along the Mountain View corridor, we had quite a few vehicles being brought from those distribution centers and parked on our city streets. This has not helped us keep our city streets clear, safe, and in good condition. So what JARB asks that we do is we look to see what's going on with our surrounding communities, and what we discovered is that there are ordinances addressing commercial parking and preventing the parking of mostly semi-trucks, truck and trailer, and the heavy vehicles on city streets. What we're looking to do here is try to prevent parking on our city streets instead of in truck parking areas such as truck stops. What we've noticed is on any given day, especially in the Commerce Center area along Mountain View and Redlands Boulevard, is anywhere from 10 to 15 trucks, sometimes with tractor, sometimes just the trailer itself is parked in that area, and it's causing, again, quite a bit of damage. And this is we're copying more or less the ordinances from our surrounding communities with some massage and editing for our community. And this is the first hearing. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Quick question. Is there a financial impact to the city of adopting this ordinance? Because I didn't see one in the staff report.
Negative.
So how would we tell someone that they can't park there? Are we putting up new signs?
We
or-
will put up signs. That is true, that there is the cost of signs, which are about $50 per sign.
So do you have any idea how many signs we're talking about?
Usually what we do is we place the signage at the beginning, at the entryways of the city, and we have
I see.
half a dozen
Okay.
streets.
All right, thank you.
It's fairly small.
I have a question. It has to do with the intent. Is there any intent to forbid the parking of light commercial vehicles, or is this only for heavy?
Just heavy, and that in the ordinance, we actually exempt the light vehicles. It's just for
Specifically
heavy
noted in
vehicles.
the ordinance.
10,000 pounds and more, I believe.
Because what I don't want to happen is for some English teacher to come in here and say that because of the arrangements of ands and ors and commas and semicolons, that something is forbidden that we didn't intend.
You'll notice that we exempted RVs. We exempted commercial vehicles that are for recreational type use. We pulled out light vehicles.
I think it's very well enumerated in the code section here. It specifically says what is exempt and what is not. If you read your packet, that'll enumerate everything inside there. I'm very in supportive of this. This is a good move. I've worked plenty of cities where commercial vehicles do a lot of damage to local roadways. And what people don't realize is we don't pave to a depth to handle most commercial vehicles within our residential streets and light arterial roadways. So this can actually cause a lot of damage, and I know the traffic's only going to pick up unless we send a message that we clearly do not allow this. It's going to continue. I'm seeing quite a bit of truck traffic that's staging down in San Bernardino, adjacent to the Amazon Center, and that's just going to continue to spill over here as we open up more and more of that use down there. So.
Under section 2, where it says penalties, it says he shall be guilty of an infraction. What if it's a she or other? Does that matter? Or should we supposed to have that be more, is he a generic he and that's okay? Or should we have a gender neutral pronoun in there?
I'll defer to the attorney for.
First line under section 2 penalties.
Yeah, typically he or she are generic and encompass both genders these days.
Besides, we wouldn't want to offend anybody. They may identify differently depending on the day.
He's rewriting the ordinance as we.
I was looking for commas at your
Well, let me
instigation
just show you what I'm talking about.
Yes, and I think I
In
found
section
one.
1, item A,
Mhm.
it says parking a trailer, comma, or a truck tractor with a trailer or semi-trailer attached, or a truck with a load capacity of over 1 ton. So it's putting in weight in the middle of this string of commas, and some don't have any weight. So for example, parking a trailer. Someone could come along and say parking a commercial trailer of any sort would be, but is that, because of the construction of the sentence, appended to the of commercial vehicles having a manufacturer's gross vehicle weight rating of 10,000 pounds or more? Or can it be read as an independent prohibition? So for example, let's say you own a business on Redlands Boulevard that has extremely poor signage, and you park a trailer on the street that's very light, maybe 400 or 500 pounds. Could this be read to say parking a trailer is forbidden because it's commercial? I don't want it to say that, and if it can be construed by any legal construction to say that, I think we need to amend it. Because commercial signage in this city is quite constricted for a lot of businesses. And when I talk to businesses out there, that's one of their biggest concerns.
All right. And looking through this, we might be missing a comma on the second line of Part A, between public street and or the parking or standing. And the same on the second line of Part B. These are not substantive changes. We can go back through the grammar and make sure it reads correctly and bring that back at the next meeting, but that might be an addition that we could pencil in tonight, would be a comma after public street on the second line of Part A and public street on the second line of Part B.
As council is aware, the Supreme Court has taken up the Oxford comma.
Yes.
In their analysis of ordinances and laws. So we need to make sure we get our sentence construction just right.
Yes, but we can make those non-substantive changes
Yes.
at the second
agree.
hearing if necessary.
I agree. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if no more comments, questions, or discussion, then what's your pleasure on the, I have to do the public hearing. Let's do the public hearing. Would the public like to speak on this topic? Anybody impacted? You got a heavy commercial vehicle, you want to just park it in front of your house? No takers. So we'll close the public hearing. Now the council can speak.
I'll move Council Bill O-2018-08 with the first reading set for a second reading on September 11th, 2018, amending Title 10.27.030 of the Commercial Vehicle Parking section of the Loma Linda Municipal Code.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously, and the second reading will occur on September 11. Next item is the consent calendar. Are there any items that anyone would like to pull for discussion?
I would like to pull items 4, 5, 8, and 10.
Okay, proceed with your questions.
Dan, I would have contacted you earlier on this, but I was going through it this afternoon, so I didn't have a chance. On page 1 of the voucher list, second item, Texstrata, switches for security cameras for $20,600. And then we have on the consent calendar, item 12, which is an appropriation of $31,000. Are those related?
No, the cameras are for the improvement of, we're upgrading the cameras throughout the city. And for the other service, that's for, we have a individual that is on our staff. Well, he's contracted to do the service for the LLCCP.
And so the 31,000 are new cameras or replacement cameras.
Some are new and some are replacing.
And so where are we adding cameras? I guess I'm now pulling number 12, which I didn't.
I believe these purchases are for the parks.
Those are for 3 or 4 of the parks and the tennis courts.
Okay.
This is a multi-year project.
Okay.
So we're doing these in kind of manageable chunks each year. And this is now the hardware for this year's camera project, and you'll see that amount probably for the next 2 more years.
So this is a phase-in?
This is a phasing, and you'll see these a couple of more times.
Okay.
The other item is essentially for that guy running the cameras back there, and then all the tech support that he does.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then on pages 3 and 4, and I'm not questioning the expenses, although they're considerable, for electric service. And we've got a whole listing of them, and I mean, some of them get to be pretty dramatic. They range from a low of $33.59 to a high, if I'm reading this correctly, of $92,765.
Yes. The bills do not come in kind of one bulk for the whole city. I mean, we have some for different locations. So we have some for services to the buildings, we have some for the landscape maintenance districts, and then we have some for the water services, the water pumping and stuff like that. So, and those are the big users, the water pumping is significant.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Those are my only questions on the demands register. Also, item 5, I support approval of both the June 26 and July 10 minutes. Regarding the July 10 meeting, I want to acknowledge to anybody that may be watching that I got more feedback and input regarding the July 10 meeting than in my 8 years on City Council. And concerns expressed about what I described at that time as tribal divisions. And the reason I want to comment tonight is to say that I'm committed, and I'm confident that my fellow councilmen are committed to practicing the collegial focus on the priorities and values of what's best for the city of Loma Linda. I was frankly surprised at how much feedback I got. On item 8, and probably our fire chief can explain this better than I can, but this is regarding the resource sharing agreement between Loma Linda and Colton Fire. And I just want to make note of the substantial budget savings this is providing. So there's two numbers here. 213,000 and 500,000 per year. Do you want to explain those to the public that may be interested?
So the first number is really what we felt. So we did eliminate a battalion chief position in the city as a result of that agreement. So that's what really our budget did feel. The higher number is in terms if we were to actually quantify the value of all the staff that we've put together. It would cost that for us to attain those positions, uniquely to our
provide the same service
to our department. Yes.
Yeah. Thank
but
you. So,
in terms of what we really felt, it was the 213,000 is what we would have budgeted in this year for that position.
well, those are very impressive numbers, and so kudos to Loma Linda Fire for being willing to extend themselves to this kind of a unique partnership, because certainly our budget is benefiting, which impacts the citizens. And then finally on item 10, I'm supportive of providing any and all equipment that Public Works needed. I have a soft spot in my heart for Public Works, and but with the understanding that they'll use any and all of this and more to get our medians cleaned up. Our Barton median is not looking good, and I'm willing to, document some things if that'll be helpful. But and then also, if I'm recalling correctly, Public Works is also responsible for the Mountain View on-ramp, off-ramps. Is that correct?
So,
We've got a lot of trash and some interesting looking bushes growing there now too. So if we need to hire more people to be able to handle the workload, especially in the summer months, then I think that's something we probably should consider, because I don't want to overtax people beyond what's reasonable, but I think it's something we need to look at. particularly since I've been critical of the median across from Surgical Hospital, and I have to concede it doesn't look really any better now than it did when they were responsible for it. So get them all the equipment we need. If we need to hire more people, then I think we need to talk about that. But
We will look into it. Yes. That was last meeting, I believe? Yeah, with that, when we approved.
we got no votes, and then they replaced them with yes
Correct.
votes.
That was, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, just one other comment on item 8, the Colton Loma Linda agreement. Chief Bender had been working closely with his counterpart in Colton. I think they finally made clear their understanding as far as future indemnity as to any potential liability arising from this agreement. The attorney for Colton had a slightly different interpretation, which I think has now been clarified. But I was still awaiting final approval from him as to the exact wording to make sure that we're all understanding that our interpretation is correctly reflected in the words. So I would ask that this be approved subject to any final tweaking of the language to accomplish our intent, which, if you recall, there was a prior claim between the cities based upon an incident that occurred in Colton but involved one of our employees in a shared capacity. And the intent of the agreement is that the city where the incident occurs would have any potential liability should they receive the service of the other city's employee. Of course, the primary remedy for any employee is always going to be workers' compensation in any event. And as you recall, that prior claim that occurred, ultimately they did drop that, and our interpretation prevailed. So we want to make sure that's the case in the future.
So should we move the East Valley Administrative Offices to Colton then?
No, we're happy with them here, quite frankly. It's better for us.
So recommend approval subject to any final review and revision of the language as approved by the city attorney. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll move the consent calendar subject to the considerations that the city attorney just described.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. We have new business item 15, accept with regret the resignation of Jeannie Weissman from the Trails Development Committee and declare a vacancy. Does that require a vote, or can we just say that sounds like a good idea?
I think a consensus.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? Jeannie Weissman served for, I believe, at least 4 years on the city council in the 1970s and 80s. So she's had a long history with the city. There was also a mention of her serving in Vietnam at a recent retelling of the escape from South Vietnam right at the end of the Vietnam War, and she was involved with that. And there was an anecdote about Jeannie that she was quite a forceful individual and really could hold her own in that kind of a dangerous environment. So I definitely regret that she's having to resign from the Trails Development Committee, because she's quite a powerful member of our community, and wish her well. So any opposition to directing the city clerk to post a vacancy notice? There's none, so please consider that to be a consensus. Are there any reports of councilmen? At the last council meeting, there was a request for information, and I am in receipt of the information. I've not analyzed it, but for the city council review, we have the attendance roster for the IVDA board for, it looks like, for several years. So that's just FYI, if anybody wants to look at it. No further comment on that. Any other councilman want to let us know what happened at meetings? There are a lot of, for my meetings, a lot of dead months in the summer, so there's not a whole lot going on. Any reports of officers?
Very briefly, you had a request to a quick update on what we're doing with the homeless and what's going on. We've been working with code enforcement, Public Works, and especially the Sheriff's Department on targeting the homeless areas. Primarily is through the sheriffs and code enforcement, we'll find them and engage them, make sure that they're okay and here safely and doing appropriate things in the appropriate way. Some of them are not doing things what they should, and the sheriffs take care of that as necessary. Our Public Works Department has been very diligent about cleaning out the small encampments and whatever once we've managed to get people into the right place and where they need to be. So we are making progress with that. It seems to be a statewide issue, and certainly in the southern part of the state, a major issue. And the only way we're able to manage that is, find these people as they come into the community and make sure that they can get to the proper services where they need to get to, and that we can stay on top of them and make sure that they get what they need. One of the things we are having a problem with is we put in the new bathrooms at Elmer Dignio Park. That seems to be a hotel site now, and so we're focusing on those, and there's quite a bit of vandalism, destruction. Our Public Works guys are locking it and unlocking it every morning, every night, and the sheriffs are, for the most part, there just about every morning and every night helping them unlock it and making sure that the people that are camped out over there can find better places to stay. And then we'll work with our sheriff's lieutenant at some meeting in the future, to get the Hope team and a representative from the Hope team to kind of give you the whole county package, because there are, outside of engaging this population and kind of helping them get to where they need to be, there's a very large investment on the part of the Sheriff's Department to open this pathway to to social services, to psychiatric help, to housing, to these programs and places that can really help them get them to where they need to be. And the ones that don't want to get anywhere, we kind of help them along the way. And the ones that have problems, our sheriffs are very eager in correcting those problems for them. So while it is a growing issue throughout the area, we're on top of it as much as we can be, with still being reasonable and being caring as we need to be as well.
And with regard to that topic of homelessness, Mayor Kerry Davis from San Bernardino called me today and is planning to convene a meeting of interested parties from our surrounding communities to discuss our strategies for the overnight homeless census for this coming year. And he wanted me to extend to anyone else an offer to attend this meeting. So I think we should have someone from our staff, and any members of the city council who would like to attend, just let me know, and I'll add you to the list of those whose schedules need to be tapped for the best timing for that. Another comment I find throughout our community frequently, derelict shopping carts of indeterminate origin, or wondering how they got there. I've seen shopping carts from Vons and Redlands in Loma Linda. I've seen displaced shopping carts from Loma Linda Market, from Stater Brothers, and from Clark's, and from Walmart spread all over the city. And it makes me glad that I still have a minivan because I've been relocating them back to their origin. I don't know if I'm doing them a service because there's no telling what's attached itself, microorganisms and macroorganisms to these carts, but they're going back to their place of origin, if I have any say in it. So if you see a shopping cart that's in the wrong place, give me a call and I'll open up the hatch of my Toyota minivan and haul it back. Or if you'd like to do it yourself and help me, that would be great too.
You can also call our Public Works Department, and then we pick them up and corral them down at the yard. And when there's enough of them, we'll let the stores know and they come pick them up as well.
Yeah.
If you're not into lifting shopping carts.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to know that service is available. That's similar to what's done with political signs that are in the right-of-way over the years.
We're working on it.
Okay, any other comments?
I have just a brief comment. A response in a previous council meeting, there had been a citizen that had engaged a couple of our council members about the fire medical program. And they questioned, how do we work with citizens? And my response had been, we have a number of ways we try to certainly lessen the impact. My response wasn't due to typically what we do is like a $300 bill someone would get, not knowing there's a subscription program and ways to make that. And we guide them to those programs to lessen the impact of the bigger bill. In this case, it appears that it happened to be that lesser program, the $48 subscription, which I don't immediately have a tool to mitigate that issue for them. So anyway, just for the public who's listening, if that citizen may be listening, we don't have an immediate tool to have that is our relief program that she's speaking to. So I'll be speaking with the city manager to see, hey, where would you like me to go in this instance? But I just want to correct my response previously had been the typical 99.9% of the time it's people calling about that larger bill. So that was my response, was based on that. So immediately I don't have a tool at my disposal, but I will speak with the city manager and see what we can do in this circumstance. Additionally to that, just information on the mutual aid effort in Northern California, our resources. We did cruise swap. The first cruise spent 14 days, and I think we're 5 or 6 days into the second round of personnel being up there. So I would expect this would be they would come home after this. They'll probably be there 14 days, and I expect them home. But we do have resources on the car incident out of Redding and the Mendocino complex as well. So, and the fire this afternoon was the couch in the pepper trees south of the AMPM at California and Redlands. So it was one of those homes we've been speaking about. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, if not, then the city council is adjourned and we'll move to our successor agency agenda. Are there any added or deleted items?
No additions or deletions.
Okay, any comments from the public on non-agenda items? Hearing none, the consent calendar is there for motion. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, it's approved. That agenda it's unanimously, and that agenda is adjourned. Next is the Housing Authority. Any items to be added or deleted? No additional comments about add or deletes. Okay, oral reports from the public. Any comments? None. The consent calendar. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition? Hearing none. Any chair member reports? Hearing none. Reports of officers? Hearing none. We're adjourned. That's it for the agendas for this evening. Thank you for attending, and thank you for your very informative comments that were so brief. interest. There's no interest.
I'm sure others have told you that's a great color with the little dots.